let's talk about Creature Commandos. So, Creature Commandos is the newest DC animated series. It's also the first installment in the new James Gunn DC Universe, or DCU as he just calls it. Blanket statement. This is supposed to be his new cinematic universe that's basically going to be or exist, like coexist in both live action like movies and TV and animated movies and TV, and they're gonna coincide together. Actors playing each other or actors playing the same character throughout the different mediums. Video games might be involved. It is whole big multimedia sort of movement, and it's being started. Well, most and foremost, the Superman movie that comes out this summer, that's directed by James Gunn, but this show is kind of like the first of it, and this whole new chapter, or this beginning chapter of the MCU, or of DCU, is going to be called Gods and Monsters. So, here are the monsters. And this show follows Rick Flag Sr. as he leads essentially Suicide Squad with monsters. And that's my first kind of complaint about this show. The team consists of the Bride, Nina, who's like a fish person, Bride being the Bride of Frankenstein, Nina, who's like a fish person, G.I. Robot, who is like essentially a robot that was built during World War II and is obsessed with killing Nazis because that's like his one like prime directive. You have Dr. Phosphorus, who looks like Blight from Batman Beyond, and Weasel, who is the same Weasel, except he looks a lot better. I hope when he gets into live action, he looks like this. He looks more like this type of character design. It's just much better. I understand that like Weasel in the Suicide Squad was supposed to be like an ugly, mangy dog, but like that just doesn't really look good. Like there's purposely making a character ugly and it being like, oh, just a part of the design, and then there's just an ugly design, and Weasel sort of broaches that other topic, that other sort of design space. And those are the Creature Commandos. There's also Eric Frankenstein, who is the actual Frankenstein's monster, and the cast is amazing. I just want to say that right off the gate. I think Frank Grillo does a good job as Flag Sr., and the Bride, Nina. I don't know their actresses' names, but they do a great job. Of course, Alan Tudyk is amazing as always. The episode focused on him, which is like about every episode basically has backstory to every character. For the most part, I don't think we really get Rick Flag's backstory, but like we get his backstory in the fact that he is Rick Flag Jr. from the Suicide Squad movies, his dad, and that's sort of all we, I guess, need to know about him. Everyone else has like more fleshed out backstory. But Dr. Phosphorus' episode, which is episode 6, is the second to last episode, is my favorite. As an uncle, I can kind of, I don't know, I kind of related. I even, just a few moments ago, was holding my niece in my arms, and like I play with, like over since like August or something, she's gotten to be like the size of, like, she isn't just like a small baby, she's like the size of a toddler basically, so you like can hold herself up, and like and it's easier to play with her now than when she was just this fragile little thing. So I related to that story, and my niece is just here. The channel, I think the channel has always been like a hobby, but it's always been put, I think, above all. But now my niece is put above all, even this channel. And my priorities have shifted, and I think so. Phosphorus's backstory was kind of relatable to me in some way. Then, of course, my second favorite episode is the one with Weasel's backstory. Weasel's backstory shows why hillbillies can never be trusted. And I like it. There are things that I love. I love the animation. I love Dr. Phosphorus. I love Weasel. I love G.I. Robot, even though he's not in the show for too long. I love the acting. I already complimented the animation. The music drops. James Gunn has gone for sort of very similar to what he did in the Suicide Squad. He went for a more like indie alternative rock type sound. So some of it lands, some of it doesn't. I can't really tell you anything that, comes to the ears immediately other than Coin Operated Boy. But like, I should remember the songs, and I kind of don't. Or I should remember more than one song, and I kind of don't. I feel like the Suicide Squad kind of had a bit of a better rate, but like a lot of us, I connected to the Guardian soundtracks more than I guess Creature Commandos and Suicide Squad. But no, I love the animation. I love the voice acting. I love Dr. Phosphorus and G.I. Robot. I think the Bride slowly becomes a really interesting character and a really good character. I love some of the music, and I don't know, like, this show just, I don't know if it was necessarily, I mean, obviously, I think it's more aimed at me than, like, say, like, Peacemaker, where Peacemaker was very much a show for incels, I can see, a bunch of incels, whether they wear pointy hats or they're, white guys for Harris. I can see them, chugging Jaeger to that show. This show, thankfully, I think is less incel-y, which is nice. But that being said, I didn't review at the time Peacemaker because I just didn't think I had a lot to add to that conversation. And this, I think, is a show that I love somewhat. I think it's more alike. I think it's a 3 out of 4. Or, sorry, a 3 out of 5. Like Letterboxd, Like, if I put this in Letterboxd, I'd give it a 3 out of 4. Because there are things that I don't like. And we're about to get into those. I don't necessarily like... So this kind of feels like I gotta sort of build some backstory up here. I didn't even tell you what this show is about. I'm just trusting that you know it. I'm gonna put spoiler somewhere around. I'm gonna put spoiler in the description in the because I'm going to assume that you know what this show is about. So spoilers. Even though this is supposed to be a quick video, spoilers. But, where was I? This feels very much like the CW Seed movies, like Freedom Fire the Ray, Constantine City of Demons, and Deathstroke Knights and Monsters, or Knights and Dragons, where those were individual, like, episodes that were aired on CW Seed, which was like a CW streaming service, and then later got released on Blu-ray. This feels like if it gets released on Blu-ray, which I'm sure it probably will, if it gets released on Blu-ray, I can see them putting it together to make a movie. Because all 7 episodes put together is like 100 minutes long. So I can see let's just put it all in a movie together sort of mentality. And that's the thing, is that this feels like a DC direct-to-video movie, just broken up into episodes. And I mean, they work as individual episodes, but I just get this feeling, especially in the final episode, that, this is an animated movie that you guys kind of just, like, released into parts. And, yeah, I don't know, like, it's fine. That's not really a complaint, but it's just something I noticed. I also don't really like that it's just Suicide Squad, except called Creature Commandos. I don't really like the violence or the language that much. I talked about this with Harley Quinn, at least the first 3 seasons. I enjoyed those because there was an interesting story, at the least, being told with Harley Quinn, where that story is very much about, female empowerment, and how, we need to, when you're in an abusive relationship, the best thing to do is to define yourself and, find yourself and define yourself as a person away from the identity that your boyfriend pushed on you. And that whole show is, very much about that, and it is about, the liberation of Harley Quinn as she becomes, her own brand of hero, apart from the Joker, apart from Batman. And that show is very, female empowerment-esque, and I can appreciate that, and I pick up on those feminist ideas. This show doesn't necessarily have that too much. This show very blanketly is about how these people who we perceive as monsters aren't necessarily monsters, but there's never but the humans are more monsters. Cersei, the villain that the Creature Commandos and Rick Flag are sent to fight in Sokovia or something, basically a made-up European country that speaks Russian. When they say, oh, you go to Sokovia and protect the princess, which is the whole premise of the show, there you go, I got it in there. That whole thing is, the story, but it's, there is no human monster. Cersei, the villain of the show, is basically a D-bag. She's a Wonder Woman villain who is using her feminine wiles to control this group of essentially MAGA people, and incels, to control this group of MAGA people into doing her bidding, and she's got them all, and the Creature Commandos kind of mow through them fairly easily, and because they're human. And Cersei is just kind of, she's a god, in this chapter of gods and monsters, she's just a god. And, she's never really defined as anything more than just, an evil witch god person. And all these creatures, all the Creature Commandos, all the subsequent monsters are they're people underneath. There's more to them than just their monsterness. But there's never a human equivalent of that. Even Amanda Waller, there's an argument, and I think it's very much true. Amanda Waller is the villain of The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn movie, The Suicide Squad. She's the villain of that movie. Or at least one of them, because you have Starro, you have the corrupt, you have the corrupt general, but Amanda Waller and the entire U.S. government is a villain in that story. And it's just okay, what do we do with that? And I think some of that is supposed to come from the backstories of these characters, the police officers who, the police officers and the hillbilly who mistook, Weasel playing with the kids as him attacking the kids. They're monsters. And the people who tracked Nina in Star City and, threw her in a fish tank and then sent her off to Belle Reve, they're monsters. The idea of just blanket the humans are monsters and the monsters are human kind of rings flat because we don't have a central thing of monster, and it, not to get overthinking, overanalyze this, but that is just, I don't know, I think kind of a letdown is that you don't have that connection of this is what, these guys, the Creature Commandos are human, or more, they're not necessarily monsters. There are layers to them, but there's no but these guys are the monsters, or if there is, it's too vague and blanket, it's too vague and blanket. That's just the thing. Other things I don't necessarily like. I guess that's, yeah, like, I mean, it's not a lot. Like, there's also just some, like, James Gunn isms that I guess I'm not necessarily a big fan of, but I think kind of comes from, like, the violence in the language and stuff like that. And, like, I think, like I can see James Gunn almost in a Zack Snyder-ish way thinking, oh, this is, like, really cool. I'm going to do this. So he does it. And, you know, like, oh, I'm going to, you know, kill off this character here, or I'm going to have Dr. Phosphorus, you know, because his power is like toxicity. You know, he can, you know, through his acid skin, melt through anything. So he, like, melts through, like, a wall, stuff like that. Like, oh, I'm going to have Dr. Phosphorus, you know, grab someone by their head and, like, you know, not cave their head in, but, you know, use the you know, his acidic hands to cave in his skull or something like that. You know, it's kind of hard to explain. I don't really want to show it because, you know, YouTube. But there's just, like, there's some disconnects, I think, that I'm having with this show, because it's interesting, and on one hand, I don't really like the ending, and then I do. But, like, I don't know, I feel like I also have some problems with the ending as well, with a kind of particular meaningless death that happens. And I guess I did say spoilers, so I can spoil it. Nina, so the princess, so Cersei tells Waller that actually the reason she tried to take over Bakovia is that the princess is evil. She's going to start World War III. And, you know, she's going to start World War III. She's going to kill, basically, the Justice League. Like, there's this whole vision, evil future thing that happens if the princess lives. And Amanda Waller is like, oh, okay, send the creature commandos to go kill the princess, because Cersei is able to show Waller the vision. And she's like, go and, you know, go kill the princess. So they go and they do that. And Rick Flag, you know, so the princess has a crush on Rick Flag, and so they, like, bone. So Rick Flag's like, what? No, you can't do that. You know, she's not, you know, she isn't evil. Well, he tries to prove, the doctor who's, like, a professor of Themyscira, where Cersei and Wonder Woman are from. She tries to prove, or Rick Flag's like, hey, let's go to this doctor lady who said that Cersei is correct. Let's try to convince her that she's wrong. Well, the doctor is been murdered and replaced by Clayface because of Cersei or something like that, or because of the princess. So the princess tries to have herself killed for some reason. And okay, but, like, Cersei still tried to kill the princess and thinks that there's a possible doomsday where the princess tries to take over the world. It's kind of convoluted, frankly. But basically, it ends with the bride specifically says, look, you're the only, the princess is swimming in, like, a big lake, or, like, a small, like, pond outside of her house or something like that. You need to, outside of her castle, you need to go take this knife and kill the princess. Well, Nina tries to do that, even though she hasn't necessarily killed anybody. She's just kind of thrown in Belle Reve, like I said, because she, through mere existence, because she's a fish person, and fish people are weird. So Nina tries to go kill the princess, but the princess takes the knife from Nina and kills Nina and stabs Nina in the stomach, and Nina dies. And the bride is upset by this, and everyone's like, okay, so the princess is saved, she's not evil, but we the audience see the princess violently and brutally murder Nina. So I immediately like, that's a red flag. I don't like the princess at all right now. I'm like, really? This is how we're ending it? Not only is this basically just a DC direct-to-video movie that we split into 7 episodes, but this is also how we're gonna end the whole show? Really? And I was just, and I was just, face palming. Well, the bride says, "Look, Waller doesn't think you're a threat, and Rick doesn't think you're a threat, and you may have had this like nice little, free security type thing, and you may not be a threat now, or and you may not be a threat later, because Cersei's prophecy could be false. But you did make one mistake." And then she shoots her right in the head. And that is the most satisfying thing. Like, one of the most satisfying villain deaths for me ever. Because, yes, the bride shoots the princess in the head because the princess killed Nina. And Nina was, like, the bride's, like, one friend. And I'm like, yes, thank you. That was super satisfactory. And, I appreciated it. And that makes me like the ending a bit more. And then, of course, there's setup for a second season, which, okay, sure, cool. But, like, and there's setup for a second season. But, like, I don't know. Like, I'm really happy. Like, I'm happy with certain moments in this show. But overall, I don't necessarily like certain moments. So here's the final verdict. Final verdict time. I like this show. I even think certain parts I love, but there's just, certain things that make me not like this show. Whether that be violence, the vulgarity, the same things I kind of tolerate with Harley Quinn. But Harley Quinn has at least for the first 3 seasons, had a really good story and a really good, brush that it was painting its characters with. This show doesn't have that necessarily, or at least not much of it. This is just a violent, vulgar show that has some nice things in it, but I'm not overall happy with it. And I'm willing to give James Gunn's Superman a shot because that looks really good. I trust James Gunn as a filmmaker and as a director and as a storyteller, but this was a 3 out of 5 experience for me. You may agree with me, you may not agree with me, but I just like this show. I don't love it, and that's okay. We are allowed to like and love what we like and love. But, and I do think that this has the possibility not to go the way of the DCEU, which is going to be a shadow over this DCU, because the DCEU, among its myriad of problems, and this wasn't just a one-person problem, but it had no vision. Peter Safran and James Gunn are the visionaries of this universe, and if James Gunn and Peter Safran can just maintain consistency and have a general sense of wholeness, then certain early bumps, like Iron Man 2, like certain post-credit scenes that necessarily didn't go anywhere, can be forgiven if they can land the bird of Superman, and if they can land the bird of whatever the heck their Justice League or their Avengers is supposed to be. If they can land the bird, or land the fish, if you're an Ant-Man fan, but if they can land the bird, and if they can kind of have a general consistency of, I like this project, I love this project, then the DCU overall is fine. But for now, it's just kind of, I liked it. But I wish it was better. So, there you go. There are my thoughts on Creature Commandos. Please comment below. Let me know what are your thoughts on Creature Commandos. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? Do you think I'm an idiot? Do you not agree that Peacemaker was a show for incels? Comment below. Let me know, because I would most certainly love to know. And stay tuned, because I got more stuff like this coming along the way. So remember that God made you special. He loves you very much. And I hope you have a very lovely week. God bless.